Well, we're finally at the last section of the Sermon on the Mount. So, good morning, everyone. This is Steve Bradley coming to you from the God Loves People YouTube channel. We're going to study Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 and following, all the way through the end of the chapter. The reason I chose to do this was that everything is tied together, and I can't really separate them properly without creating a lot of confusion. So here's how it reads, chapter 7, verses 15 and following. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening or fierce wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from thorns or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree brings forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that brings not forth good fruit is hewn down, cut down, and cast into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you shall know them. Now, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? And in your name cast out many devils, or cast out many demons, and in your name done many wonderful works? Then I will profess to them, I will tell them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work iniquity. Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them shall be likened to a foolish man who built his house upon sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. And it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. So, wolves in sheep's clothing. Now, this expression has worked its way into our speech so that we use it about any situation, not just religious. And you know what it is. It's a pretender. It's a person who pretends to be your friend, who pretends to be like you, but in reality, he's something completely different. And they are what we call false prophets. In other words, they don't bother to tell the truth. They shade the truth just a little bit, so it no longer is 100% true. It's some false. Somewhat like giving a person a cup of tea and putting just a little bit of cyanide or arsenic in it. So little that they can hardly taste it. But this tastes metallic, they say. It's not quite right, they say. But I'll drink it anyway. And then, of course, it's poison. So these are false prophets. And this is tied to the preceding. Ravening wolves are false prophets. Fierce wolves are false prophets. So this is also tied to the preceding information when he talks about the straight gate, the narrow gate, and the wide way. So these false prophets are trying to keep you off the narrow path and move you on to the wide path so that you can go to destruction with them. So the final admonitions of the Sermon on the Mount are interconnected. That's what I'm saying. You enter by the narrow gate. You beware of the false prophets. And how do you tell who false prophets are? Well, you know them by their fruits. What do they do? What are they like? And there's a lot of information about false prophets in the New Testament. And you can look it up. Some of it's in 2 Peter chapter 2, some of it's in Jude, and so on. But Remember, follow the straight path. Follow the narrow path. Enter through the narrow gate. Now he turns his attention after that to the false prophets themselves. And he says not only about them, but to them. He says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. So now he's addressing these false prophets and he's saying, look, you're not going to get there. You're going to go on the wide road, the broad road that leads to destruction. And they respond to him on Judgment Day, well, haven't we prophesied in your name? How about we've cast out demons? How about we've done many wonderful works? And Jesus says, no good. I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work iniquity. And that's the most important thing you can understand. It's about who we are and what we do, not the many miracles and a lot of preaching that we do. So, the next thing that he does, after he says, I never knew you, is he gives this amazing illustration about the two houses. And this is so important because what you need to know here is that Jesus Christ does not care if you just hear what he says. That was a great sermon. So what? What did you do about it? That's what he's saying. So he says, and I'll read it again because it's so important. He says, everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does them shall be likened to a wise man who built his house upon a rock. And everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does them not shall be likened to a foolish man who built his house upon the sand. And we know the conclusion of that because the storms of life always come. They'll happen to everyone. And the question is, will your house stand because it's built on a rock? Or is it built on sand? That's the question. And the final saying is, it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astounded at his doctrine, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. Because, of course, he did have authority. He is Jesus Christ, Son of God and Son of Man. Praise his name. God bless you all. Hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And Merry Christmas if we don't talk to each other soon.